everybody from staff and board that we need here, and we have a couple of folks from community, so that's great. All right, we ready to get going then, General Manager?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to Board of Directors Strategic Planning Workshop. This is Wednesday, January 13th, 2021. We're starting at 6:32 p.m. And let's start with roll call. General Manager, would you please?
Director Aston?
Here.
Director Carlson?
Here.
Director Bazette?
Here.
Director Scobie?
Here.
Director Wooten?
Here.
And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Bazette, this is your first one of the year with us here and our first opportunity to do this. Would you lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, sir. And the reminder, as we move forward, public testimony will be received on each agenda item as it is called. Principal parties on each side of an issue will be allocated 10 minutes to speak. Individual comments limited to 3 minutes, except with the consent of the board. And the rest of this is standard operating procedure. Our panel or our attendees here from the public are aware of this, so I will waive the rest of the reading of that and we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. So with the agenda, do I have any questions or additions, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I move to adopt the agenda.
I second the motion.
Okay, so we have a move by Director Scobie and a second by Director Bazette. General Manager, would you call that?
Director Aston?
Aye.
Director Carlson?
Aye.
Director Bazette?
Aye.
Director Scobie?
Aye.
Director Wooten?
Aye.
Agenda is adopted 5-0. Now we come to the open forum for non-agenda items where members of the public may speak on any item not on the agenda that falls within the jurisdiction of the Board of Directors. So we'll open this up for an open forum at this point. If any of our attendees has any comments they want to make or items they want to bring to us, go ahead and you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you and bring you in. Give that a minute to happen. Okay, seeing no response there, we will go ahead and close open forum and move into our next item of general business, the reason we are meeting tonight. So our item here is a workshop 5-year strategic plan. So with that, General Manager, I'm going to hand this to you and to Mr. Ives to go ahead and begin walking us through this.
I'm going to kick it off and then I'm going to turn it over to Brent. And if you weren't here, and I were talking earlier that this is the fun part of being a board member and being on a board, is to working together for the most important governance document that you guys are going to decide on, and will really set the path for the next 5 years. And so the district staff is here to help you tonight. Hats off to Whitney Kahn. She's really met with Brett and I on several occasions, and she's taking the lead on the kind of the community outreach aspect of it. Our staff meeting with stakeholders, there's about 25 groups that we're meeting with, which should conclude by the end of the month. We've been working with Brent since December to prepare, and Brent has been working since December to prepare for this workshop tonight. He has interviewed all of the individual board members. We have activated a community survey on our website, and we have some information about that to share with you tonight. The leadership staff here at the district has provided input into some strategic objectives as well. So we're really excited to be here tonight. When the board approves this document in a few months, it will really serve as the district's roadmap for the board and the staff to follow. And the plan will set priorities. It will make us efficient with the resources that we have. And our intent is for the district to be financially sustainable in the years to come. So those are all really great things. I want to thank Barbara for attending tonight and providing input. I'm not sure if you've been contacted yet, but you're on our list to have an individual interview with. Also welcoming Jana from the Cameron Park Life, who is here tonight. And I think that we'll follow up with the newspaper as well. So anyway, with that, Whitney and I has really enjoyed working with Brent. I hope the board members have enjoyed meeting him. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Brent and introduce Brent Ives.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. It is nice to be here finally together and working on the future of the district. I certainly appreciate your confidence in me to be able to work with you on this, and I look forward to. Let me just start with this. This won't be the only workshop we have on this. We realize, and my experience in doing many of these during this last year is that you really need to actually slow it down a little bit. While it seems faster because when you do things on Zoom, you can just kind of do it, schedule it next week instead of next month, and things can happen more readily. The fact is that the effectiveness of Zoom in terms of really thinking through some of these things and really getting to discuss through some of these things takes some time. And so there may be actually 2 or 3 of these kinds of meetings to kind of finish the whole, what we need from you to be able to go through to the next phase of the document and then to move on to a finished product. And so be patient with the process. Tonight, we're going to go not, more than an hour, but not too much more than an hour, maybe an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes. Because after a while, Zoom, in my experience, and a lot of my clients' experience, is after a while, it just seems so difficult to continue to really engage at that level. So be patient with the process. I'm going to need to share my screen. So Alyssa, I believe, has control of everything. So she's going to switch me over to host, and I'm going to share my screen, which is a PowerPoint. So while we'll see each other, I think in a different method, we will be focusing on a PowerPoint.
I'm actually, Brent, not getting the option to make you a host for some reason.
Well, how about that? Let's see what I've got. I've got options.
That
Make
would be-
myself host. I can't make myself host.
Right now.
Pardon me?
There's 2 hosts right now, and I think we need to release one of those to make a co-host.
Oh, unhost me there, Alyssa.
It's not giving me that option either.
Oh, you know what?
That might be.
Why don't you, I'm going to sign off and I'll sign back in as a panelist because right now, because I logged in before you, I'm the host.
Okay.
Okay, so let me log off and then I'll sign back in as a panelist. Oh, but I'm going to end the meeting for everyone.
Then you can host
Not good.
You should be able to just leave for you, Jill. There should be 2 options, like end meeting for all or just leave.
Okay, let me see if I find the leave. Where's the leave?
Should be bottom right.
red
Bottom
button.
right. I see end.
And
Which I
if you,
did that before by mistake.
oh, okay. And Brent, when you go down on the bottom of yours, do you, I have a screen share option. Do you have one that just automatically, because you're a panelist?
Do I have a screen share? I am viewing Alyssa's screen right now.
But if,
So
View
Alyssa,
options. Let me see if I have a share screen.
Alyssa or Jill, you need to enable participant screen sharing.
Okay, there
We'll
it
get there.
is.
Okay, so now I can do what?
Okay, I just enabled
Now-
all panelists to share a screen.
So
and now Brent,
Right.
you should be able to do yours.
Let's see if I can do it. Share screen. How would I do? Oh, there it is. Wait a minute. Do I want the, will this will stop the other screen sharing? Yes, I'll
That's
go
fine.
ahead.
That's fine.
All right, and I'm going to do this, and you should see a PowerPoint come up.
there we go.
Ta-da!
Thank you
Okay.
to all the Zoom experts.
Unfortunately, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. You'll just bear with me because I shared that screen and I didn't really mean to share that screen. So now I know it's there. That's good. So I'm going to share screen and I'm going to share the, come on, where is it? Well, that's unfortunate. I don't see the screen I need to share because what I need to do is get it in front of me. So please be patient. These things do take time. There, I'm going to share that screen. And I'm going to leave. No, that says leave. Now I'm going to share. Now what do you see? Do you see your text here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good, because I'm going to move this in front of it. Now there's a reason to my madness. And it is that I, oh my, you probably didn't like that much. Okay, so do you see the, either you guys are way over here now. All right, I'm going to put you so at least I can see you. So now I'm going to try to grab this edge. So just bear with me. The reason I leave it in this mode is because that way I can actually modify the PowerPoint while we're going through it. And that's important because I want to take your comments and put them together so that we can all see them together and say, is this really what we're saying? And so now, do you see the PowerPoint in front of you?
Yes.
Yep.
Good. And now I'm going to change screens and that'll be the big test. You see my introduction?
Yes.
Excellent. You can hear me and see what I'm wanting to show you. So my name is Brent Ives. I don't know that all of you know me because there could be some public here tonight, and we welcome you and we're glad that you're here and interested in the future of the district. Again, bear with the process. This will take at least maybe 3 of these little workshops to be able to get through it in a Zoom world. I've been an organizational consultant for special districts for about 20 years now. This is my second career. I was another thing in another place at another time, including engineering manager at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And I was also on the city council of the city of Tracy for 23 years and 8 years of those as mayor of the city, directly elected mayor. And Ellie and I can share that great acknowledgement. I just have to tell you that Ellie is a famous mayor because of what she did in Merced for UC, and I look up to any mayor that can get that much done in that much time. And because of that, I was on numerous different kinds of elected boards and appointed boards over those years. And at Lawrence Livermore, we did a lot of strategic planning, and it didn't seem like we did enough strategic planning at the council. And so I overlapped one career into the next and then started this during that time and began to ramp up this business. And it's just, I'm so sorry. I don't know what that does to you when I do it, but I hit this screen save. Forgive me. What it's done is it never needed to go to cities. I've done a few cities, but it's almost always been special districts. I've probably done, and I'm looking over at my cabinet now, I've probably done 100 to 125 strategic plans. And now it's turning around to where their updates are happening too. It was just a few years ago that I was working with your district, which was quite different then, with another general manager and another board, and it rolled up to what it could at the time, and now it's time to update it. Oh my! Well, I don't know why this is happening. Again, I don't know what you see there when I go to screen save, but it's probably some fluffy thing. Okay, so before I like to just put everything that I've got on the agenda, I want to know if there's anything that you want on the agenda, anything that you're expecting, anything that you want to make sure that today or next time that we get together, that you want to make sure you don't forget. You want to make sure that we get a chance to discuss. It's really important. This is a rare time when it's a little free flowing. It's the opportunity to really put on the what would we like to accomplish hat, what can we accomplish hat. I do want to say that there is input in this presentation on your budget for the next 5 years. There's input on, and that's just a perspective, what the pro forma might be for your budget in the next 5 years. And there's also input from your senior staff and from other stakeholders and from your public here. So we'll get to see all that. I want to make sure, though, however, that you all get a chance to put anything in here that you feel that you want to make sure doesn't get lost or does get discussed. Anything that you were expecting for sure, and just feel free to speak. If it gets really crazy, then we'll raise hands. But if anybody would like to,
So Brent, I'd like to know what the city will look like in 5 years. So that's population, demographics, planned developments, roads, parks, schools. Because I know people do have those kind of planning goals out there. So it would be helpful for us to kind of, at least for me to better understand what we're actually looking at in 5 years.
sure, that makes complete sense. And is of course, that crystal ball may or may not be available, but we should discuss it. What do we think it's going to look like? Because what the district does will reflect or work within that framework, won't it? It'll be the context of your work. Okay, very good. And that kind of starts with the budget that that Jill has worked up and said, might be what we really have, but there's more. I think some of the issues that you put on the table, you five have put on the table with me, ask that question in so many words as well. What else?
I think something I'd like to add to the discussion is, what does it mean to be a community services district at this point in time? There are obvious things in our description and definition: fire and emergency services, waste management, parks and rec, all that. But there are factors in our community's life that are different now than they were even just a few years ago. And we're talking about fire and power outages, and now with COVID, and how the community has had to respond to new realities. So I'm wondering if it's worth asking the question, what does it mean to be a community service district now? Has anything changed?
That's a reasonable question. Yeah. So we'll review this once or twice during the process, just to make sure that have we really looked at this? Have we really gone through this? So as we go through the material, we'll see if we get answers to these questions. If not, then we need to spend some time with them. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Very
And
good.
something I should clarify too, as chairing this meeting, is we want to be paying attention to the public in this as well. So Alyssa, you can be helping with that, but I've got the attendees in front of me in case they want to raise their hand.
And Mr. Chair, you feel free to interrupt me anytime when you need to allow that interaction.
Sounds good.
What else, board? Is there anything else you want to make sure is on there?
I'd like to make sure that, if at all possible, we still have Jill 5 years from now.
So you want me to put those words down here? Will that make it happen?
I have to drink some anti-aging Kool-Aid.
She has, I don't know if I'll be here 5 years from now, but anyhow, she has a way with people. And I think I mentioned that when we did the goals or something like that. But she makes the public feel comfortable, like good things are going to happen. The pool, the splash pond, so forth. So that I would be interested in knowing that.
a GM that makes the public feel comfortable because it's probably not going to be Jill. The fact is, and that's at least what I'm hearing. It could be, I don't know. I suppose everybody's got their price, but I think that the fact is that whether it's Jill or not, you like that part of who she is, and that's going to be important to you, whether it's Jill, keep doing it, or it's whoever you're going to have to go, you're going to, if it's not Jill, you're going to have to go through a process. That process is not easy. I don't know, Ellie, if you ever had to replace a city manager before, but
Yes.
it is not an easy process to find those very particular, that particular set of skills that Jill has, that you love in another person that's sitting across the table in an interview. That is not the easiest thing in the world to do. But one thing is make him feel comfortable, that whole, all the things that you love about Jill, you need to keep in mind if and when you have to go through that process. So that is really, in terms of your 5-year outlook, in my experience, that's one of your biggest strategic, if indeed you have to go through that, if that is one of your biggest strategic decisions that you as a board will have to make together, is the process and how you 5 end up making that decision on who's gonna sit in that seat. And that's a big one. So that's a good catch.
It is a very big one, because if you've been there 8 years, and I know just from being mayor.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to fire 2 of them. It was not easy, but it is the experience I've got. But I know that finding one that fits the community, fits the board, fits has those traits and attributes that you're looking for. It is a common challenge for public agencies. What else? What else, board? Anything else that you'd like to have on there? Make sure we don't forget.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we think about the other entities with whom we work. I don't know what to call it. Partners, whether they're governmental or private or membership organizations, but just kind of have a thought of the universe of entities that we are in and where our priorities should be with maintaining and developing relationships with them. Please summarize.
Think about our partners, because they're strategic partners, and
Yeah.
so, in this context, there are strategic. Yeah, this typing in public is not the best.
You engineers, that just kidding.
If I could just, strategic partners and relations.
Yeah, because I know that we talk about them. We do talk about them, and I think we've
It's there. We've got that captured, Felicity.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about that.
We did.
And
I just
how go ahead.
I want to think about it in a more comprehensive manner, instead of just kind of like, oh yeah, them, and how about them, and what about that? Just in a more comprehensive manner. So
well, and I think it's a very look. It kind of goes back to the second bullet. What does it mean to be a CSD at this time? It will depend. You do depend on them. Strategic partners are that way. The kind of relationships you either do or don't have with them can make a huge difference in your next strategic move,
right.
Whatever that might be in your community. You need them, as the chair pointed out. What does it mean to be a CSD? How can we answer some of the questions that our constituency has when we are the CSD in town, but we are only a CSD that can answer so many questions? So you need those strategic partners so badly at times to make things happen. Very good point, Felicity. Anyone else?
Felicity, we even talked about leveraging partnerships. I mean, so that the district is providing better services is really, taking those partnerships and creating them, but really leveraging them for better services is what the management team talked about.
Nice. Thank you.
I think internally leverage is a good word. I'm not so sure that they appreciate that.
Probably not.
Not using them.
But we know what we mean. And your constituents need to know that you're on that's important to you. So that's very good. Director Pizzette?
The committee system, and I'm new to this, but I've been on committees for quite a while. So is the effectiveness, efficiency, are we doing the best that we can with our committees? Are there better models? Are there committees that we should have in addition or instead of what we currently exist?
Oh, there are lots of models. It honestly depends on what you're trying to achieve, but it's a great discussion because committees can be the actual connection that you have with your community, or they can turn into some other animal that we didn't recognize when we started out. And so you really need to be deliberate about committees. And I think it's a very good question. Whether or not there's a strategic action there or not, other than let it be said that we are going to be very deliberate and clear about what we want out of committees, what their committees are going to do, how we're going to get that input, what we're going to do with that input once we get it. I've been saying for a long time, be careful what you ask for, because you might get the answer that you didn't expect that now you've got to deal with. Because, look, we're public agencies. It all belongs to them. Everything that all those parks, all those public lands, all the playgrounds, it all belongs to them. And we're just their representatives. And so we want to hear from them, but we don't take a poll on everything either. They've set you five aside. So those are all good points when it comes to committees. Very good though. Very nice. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Monique. I have two actually. I would like to make sure that the board has an opportunity to discuss any type of environmental policy that we'd want to look at in the near future. And the second one is really firming up our financial position into the future, and so that we have projections and some, band of certainty, that we'll be solvent.
That's a great
You never
term.
know, but if we look at it, at least we'll have some better idea and not be completely surprised if another pandemic comes by.
Yes, we used to call them a rainy day fund. I think this it'll be called something else now, but very good. I think something specific on the our environment, what we intend relative to the environment and that financial position. I think a few of you have brought up, how can we, remember I asked the question, in 5 years, what would you really like to be able to say about the district? What would you like to say you've achieved, or you've eradicated, or you've been able to solidify? That's really the whole point of this process. If you're going to think strategically, the tactics and the implementation parts of it are going to fall from those questions. We'd like to say that we are going to have, I'll just use this one, we will have a clear, and I'll use the word again, clear and deliberate environmental policy as a district. Okay, so Jill goes after that, and let's say there are 10 other things that you want to say, as in 5 years we've done that. Then what we do is take this when we're done after a couple of workshops, and we put okay, if that's where you want to go, here's what it's going to take to get there. Here's what we think it's going to take to get there. Then we bring it back to you and say, are we on track? Is this what you were expecting? Does this, and then we put it in the priorities relative to a 5-year plan. So very good. I think that one is easy to kind of see how it's going to go. You're going to end up with an environmental policy if indeed that's what the board desires. Discussion is what's important. Firming up, what did you say about the financial position? It was a great term, and I was going to comment on it, but it expressed what where you'd like the financial position to be in 5 years. It was more than just solid. You used a great term. I wish I could remember it, but
I do
now,
too. I think it was a projection or a degree of certainty or
Solvent. I think you said solvent.
solvent or solvency.
solvency. Hi, Kitty. Yeah, the solvency is an interesting term that needs to be discussed too. Again, we have a spreadsheet that looks out in the future, and Jill will talk a little bit about that. So good, very good. I think that's in 5 years to say we're on firm financial ground or we're financially solvent. I think that's a great strategic move. You got to understand, okay, what's it going to take to be that, to get there, to assure that. That's the whole idea of this plan. Okay, what else? Anything else? And we're not going through all the things I know that you guys have already told me. Those are, oh golly, those are already on here. So just bear with the process, and it will show some of those things that you guys have already given to me. Anything else right now?
One thing, if I could add, Brent, that came up.
Yes.
It's just this is something that we have wrestled with for years, and I don't know if it ever gets solved as much as strengthened, is simply communication and education in our community. Just connecting the community to the CSD as an entity, as a base, as a whatever, just so that our community is aware of us more, is educated more, not simply what we do, but what's available. And that's everything fire and CCRs and LLADs and everything, but just the large majority of the community goes by and doesn't even know.
Right. Good. And that was one of those things that came up with a number of you, is that how do we assure that we're adequately connected with our community? And that's
a biggie.
That's a biggie. It is a biggie. You're right. Okay, very good. Thank you so much for that. Look at that. We got a good list started there. So the board, this all started with the board's decision. This is all background to go ahead and renew, almost start over with a 5-year strategic plan. It includes a lot of input. You'll see that's still to come. But it allows for a discussion, and you sometimes you have to slog through. I don't know if it's a very good term, but you have to wade through the muck and mire of a mission statement and a vision statement and mission, vision, values. Not everybody thinks that these sessions, it can get bogged down a little bit at times, not always. But you have to hinge your strategy on those things. The only thing that's enduring here, I mean, one of the things that's very enduring about a public agency is its mission statement. It's just like any other organization. It's not the most compelling thing to work on, but it's maybe one of the most important things you have, because you know the why of your endeavor. And knowing the why is really important. I don't know if any of you have ever written or taken any writing courses before, but the first thing they teach you is you've got to know your why. And in terms of a special district or a public agency, why you exist, why does the public's money get raked into a pile for you to spend? That's really an important element. So your mission statement kind of gives you that. Your values are why and are how your U5 and how you mix your values to express how you intend to do your work. We intend to be honest. We intend to be transparent. We intend to be fiscally prudent or fiscally imaginative. It can go anywhere, right? You five need to kind of say, here are our values, but the values then trickle down into the actual implementation of a strategy. And then vision is what we've almost begun talking about, is what in the 5-year thing do we need to recognize? Do we need to plan? Do we need to start? Do we need to finish? How do we really want to get things done? Like, for instance, a communication plan. What things need to be done to really assure, not just say, but assure that we're connecting to the best of our ability with our community or our environment or our finances. So those foundational statements are the essence. And so we need to get through those things. So I've had workshops before where people say, we didn't expect to get slogged on. I said, but you've got to know why you exist. You've got to be able to stay with that, because that's what the public's money really is vectored. That the piece of public money that you get is vectored to why you exist. And that's why the whole thing was set up to begin with. Okay, so please be patient with that. And then we will, at the end of this, we'll review, update, and document a 5-year direction. And that's an exciting thing. It doesn't mean that in 5 years, in year 3, that something we didn't expect happens that changes it. You can't anticipate everything. In a 5-year plan that I did in 2018 or 2019, do you think anybody planned for 2020? No. Nobody planned, and nobody had any clue. And you can take that to almost every organization as well, because this is so. Can we mitigate all of those? No. Can we anticipate all those? No, but we can do the best we can. And I think that's what our public expects for us to do in public work. And I think more agencies should sit down like this and do this very kind of thing. Okay. Let's see what's next here. So we'll discuss strategy in general, which I'm already doing. We'll consider the district status, meaning the financial and otherwise. Where do you sit? Right now, I hope we're on the ladder, the downside of COVID. I don't know how to really give nobody knows how to really put that, but we know we've got that to deal with. What does that really mean for you in terms of what you do? We're coming up, you have almost annual challenges with wildfires or the threat of wildfires. We'll look at some of those environmental factors that you all can bring up better than I. Then I'm going to ask you to consider those financial statements. We're going to mission, vision, values. Also discuss and develop strategic focus areas. So based on all this input that we're talking about on the first 3 bullets, then we've got to say, okay, as such, we feel like these are strategic focus areas for the next 5 years, whatever they might be. It might be communications, might include relationships with strategic partners, relationships with our county, relationships with our employees. See, so then they can start branching off. But this 4th bullet, discuss and develop strategic focus areas, that probably won't happen tonight, but it'll get us thinking. We'll be starting to kind of put things into bins. After the workshop, then these will go into a document that staff and I will work on to begin moving these forward with real implementation. All of our strategic plans have presumed dates. I don't believe, and I know others that have served in other positions. It's great to make a plan, but if you don't put a date to it, it really doesn't mean a whole lot. And so we're going to project dates on the kinds of implementation that we propose to you. And you'll be able to see that as this thing emerges and as it unfolds. And at the end of whatever, as far as we get tonight, I'll discuss what's next after that. So the flow down, okay, the flow down of a strategic plan. The mission, everything's built on the mission. It's a flow down. It should be a flow up. Everything's built on the mission statement. It's directed by your values. It moves forward with your vision. The focus areas say within that vision, there are these focus areas that we're going to concentrate on in the 5 years. And then staff is going to say, well, okay, if those are the focus areas, they develop the initiatives as they should. Staff is the reason we hire good staff is to put their professional heads to implementation. We as board members, as policymakers, we direct the what, they tell us how, and we help. This process is the one time where we get to mix it up a little bit and work together on what that really means. And then goals and initiatives for each of goals and milestones for each of the mission. That's those, what are we going to think we're going to do, and when do we think we're going to do it? Anybody stop me anytime you have questions, okay? Because I can talk for hours, it seems like. All right. So here you go. There's mission statement, there's vision, and you see where the board is. See the line here? That's above. That's what the board does. They define the what. Down here, the staff is defining the how. But that doesn't mean that we don't work together on all of it to get this plan done. But I'm just saying that's another way of saying what we were just looking at. Here's another way of looking at it, where the mission, vision, values, and it all kind of focuses down into these strategic elements or these strategic focus areas. And then there's actions and goals and initiatives for each one of them. And there's ongoing work in some cases that's already there. We just have to finish it or move it forward. This is an interesting chart. Some of you may have seen this before, this diagram. You see up here in the corner is a value-driven. Here, in this red, it's red on my screen. I don't know what color it is on yours, but this is the board. And mission and beliefs and purpose and vision, policies, outcome. You define the ends of what you want to get done. Down here is that administrative staff, and they're skill-driven people. Jill is a skill-driven person. She has years of experience that she's applying to getting the things you want done. And those are strategies and tactics and techniques. And so those define the how. You define the what, they define the how. What we're doing right now is that magic middle, that controlled interface. A controlled interface is very important, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, because it deals with nuclear materials. And so controlled interface is really important. You don't want uncontrolled interface, meaning that we as a board, we do what we do up here. We're the policy makers, we're the vision setters, we're the direction movers. Down here is the skill-driven staff, and it's not up and down, but it's over here. They're part of the team that is skill, and they apply their best professional knowledge. We get to control that interface in the strategic planning process. Put it all together so nobody's overstepping their bounds. You don't want the red to get down too far into the weeds here of the yellow, and you don't want the yellow coming up here and defining the policies either. So that's why this is so important in terms of a public agency. A public agency is like no other in those terms, where you need to be able to have separate separate entities that work well together to bring it to its optimal form. And so it's really a very unique organization. So what you're doing is strategic planning. It brings you all together at the right level, and bringing you all together is a really important thing. It allows you to practice your rightful leadership role. Here's where we want to go. It asserts and confirms your mission. It assures clarity for staff in the development of your vision. See, once this is done, you will have these strategic focus areas that will have implementation steps for each year going out in 5 years. That clarifies for Jill and staff that they're on the right track. If they go back to the strategic plan and they're doing things that the board has set as their strategic plan, they know they're not off of the rails or having to guess at whether or not they're doing the right thing. They're working on those things. They come back and check it with you. You check with them. How are we doing? Without a strategic plan, oftentimes it ends up wandering. And sometimes you wake up one morning and you find yourself in different places. And that's when we as agencies start doing things that really doesn't help the public at all. What helps the public is for us to be efficient as possible and deliberate and clear about our future. That's what really the public is bargaining for. I think that would go a long way in larger entities than CSDs right now. In other places in the country and in the state, if everyone were working single purpose, think how different things would be. That's why it's really important for local governments to do this, because we're the last bastion of hope for government, I believe, in some respects. So clarity is really important. Keeps your vision properly separate from implementation. You all keep the vision out there, keep pushing on the vision, make sure the implementation is happening per the plan. And allows your staff to practice their professions by implementing your vision. Requires strategic thinking. And remember, anything that you can ask when you ask the question, why do we do this? Why is this important? Why is that an initiative? If you can answer that question, then you're moving back to the higher purpose of what you're supposed to do. For instance, Director Scobie, you want an environmental policy. Why do you want that?
Well, I'm thinking specifically about our district and our susceptibility to fire, and what we can do to mitigate that as a district. And that environmental policy is it can be overreaching in terms of how do we mitigate climate change down to the nitty gritty of, what can we do to secure our district from burning up. So I see it as, it's an entire spectrum. And that's why I think I'm bringing forward to ask the board to have a discussion on it.
And see, it's well grounded in the mission, because your part of your mission is fire protection. I don't want to say it wrong. You all probably have a particular word. I call it fire protection, or it fits right in your mission. So you end up being able to ground your vision in the mission, and that's really important. If you could ask the question why, then you haven't quite got there yet, but you can. It's the same way with some of the other things, like communicating with our community. Why? Because we're here to optimize the quality of life for this community. Well, that's your mission. That's part of your mission. So see, strategic thinking really isn't all the specific implementation stuff, the particulars, as it is more the bigger picture stuff. And so always ask the question, why do we want to do that? And you should be able to answer that question. So here we are. Here's the, we've gone over this linkage before, and I don't want to belabor that, but now I want to go on to inputs. The board perspective shared with you today, the BROD, that should be broad, I think, allows for you to hear a variety of sources as you're planning. So we're putting our planning hats on now. The perspective we're going to see from different places then allows us to kind of round out some of those things you were saying earlier and some of the things you told me earlier. So we're going to look at your individual inputs collected. We're going to look at some staff leadership pieces. We're going to look at what Jill gathered from stakeholders. We're going to look at a financial status. And stakeholders also had a survey that should say also Whitney worked very hard on a public survey. And overall position of the district in light of planning. What's the context for looking forward? So this is, Jill, this is some of the stakeholder input that you got.
Actually, staff input.
Staff, I'm sorry, staff. That's what I meant. Yeah, let's do this.
What's steady?
What's that now? Where are you at there?
The third word.
Oh.
Oh, this. Numbers indicate that more than one identified had listed. So if there are numbers beyond these, like the 4 and 4 and 3 and 2, that means more than one agreed with that statement. Is that right, Jill?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what the staff has said. Emerge from the pandemic as a viable, fiscally sound organization balancing all district services. And there was a 4 on that one. So that's really important to your staff. The 4s are the highest numbers. Maintain culture that values professionalism, mutual respect, and collaboration. And Jill, would you say that that was an organizational culture?
Yes.
Yeah. So people like work, they like the aspect of professionalism and that mutual respect and that collaboration. So don't do anything to mess that up in this process is probably what they're saying. And board, I can imagine, anybody's public agency budget is largely goes to paying the salaries of our staff, and they're the ones that are out there every day and will get up in the morning and come in or go out. I don't know that they come in anymore very much, but are putting their time in to make sure that this thing works every day. So that's a public, our staff, think of your staff as a public investment, because every day they learn more, every time they get some more training, every time they get more perspective, the public has put money into them to be able to get there. So as a whole, your staff is a public investment, a huge public investment. And so
Also the fire.
But yeah, the fire, absolutely. Right. All of them. Yeah. Make capital investments to improve and expand services to residents. Okay. Education and outreach regarding district services with limited resources. Is that, that's a comma there, but is that kind of with Jill, you think?
Yeah. Yes.
Improve public perception as a viable agency. What can we say about that, Jill?
I think it's kind of twofold. Some of the staff refer to it as an identity crisis that really, and I think others, board members have talked about this, where people really don't know what we do and who we are. So I think really championing, this is the CSD and this is what we do is important to address that. And I think that we are still mending fences and trying to, I don't know, prove ourselves is the right word, but I think we've come a long way in people's perception of us, but I think we still have some fence mending to go.
Was there some of that in your comment, Mr. Chair, as well, in that comment there?
Perhaps mine was more of both an awareness and how vital we are. And
But yeah, this seems to be kind of a, hey, I wear the district patch out to work, and I'm not sure that people are always happy with us or we're not, or we get calls to customer service and it's nothing but, yeah, complaints.
I think anybody who knows us now is great, but I think that there are people who engage with us so infrequently that they still remember the old district and not necessarily the current leadership here in the board level and at the staff level.
But the viable agency, that's an interesting comment. What do you think is meant by viable?
I think that what we do is important and it's good work. I think that's what we mean by viable, that we have good processes and that we take to heart, what the community wants and we try to deliver those services.
I know what we want to think, but it's just a pair of words, the two pair of words, public perception and viable agency.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some public perception out there that the CSD is no longer viable, or it's not useful, or it's not efficient, or is there something that's reactionary here?
Staff, do you want to help me out here?
Yeah, I can chime in. So I think this was the first one, or was my number one. But when it comes to public perception, just to give you a little bit of background, when I first got working with the district, almost 3 years now, public perception was in pretty bad shape, making phone calls to the county, to user groups. It just seemed like the district wasn't seen as, we just weren't respected, I guess. We've come a long, long ways over the last 3 years. But to continue that public perception is for me, it's about being respected not only by the community, but by all the other government agencies that we do business with.
So you think the trend line is good?
Where we're at now? Yeah.
Yeah. So continue that trend line. And
Yeah, I think
yeah.
it could always be better, but yeah, I think we're in a pretty healthy place right now.
Yep.
Brent, I struggle with the word.
Brent, if I could just interject quickly, just seeing how the flow of this is going, I want to throw it out to our public, our attendees.
Sure. Yeah.
I think it's appropriate to simply say that as we move through this, because we're in more of a free flow discussion with staff and board, that if the public wants to chime in on something, to just go ahead and raise your hand. I've got you up in front of me and I'll keep an eye, as will Alyssa. So you can
Very
chime in
good.
at the appropriate point. I'll leave it at that and give that back to you.
And I have a comment when there's an opening.
There's I don't know who said that, but there's an opening.
It's Felicity.
Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate, it's kind of interesting, these two sentences next to each other. The one, education and outreach regarding district services with limited resources. And then the next one, improve public perception as a viable agency. At first I was thinking, well, those two could be combined, because by engaging in better education and outreach, we will improve the public perception as a viable agency, which is true. But I think that does kind of paper over, the somewhat recent painful past that the district has gone through, where it did go through a pretty rough patch with burning bridges with members of the public. But I think what, Mike, you bring up a really important point. I feel like the first one that we're talking about, education and outreach about services, is really more to the general public. And the second one sounds like to me is about our relationships with our partners, with our strategic partners. Yeah. So I think they aren't really meant to be combined, but I think that they're two facets of really important things. So the one about improving the public perception, it almost seems like improving the perception among our strategic partners as a viable agency. So
It could. And again, remember, this is from your staff. So
yeah.
Oh,
Great.
well
Dr.
said,
Kobe?
Felicity.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a suggestion of maybe viable as meaning competent and valuable
Valuable to the public,
and competent.
competent.
That's my suggestion.
And I would agree with Monique
Yeah,
100%.
I would too.
with it.
I was struggling with viable because in the biological sense, it means it may or may not survive. I think
Yeah.
what it was trying to capture was valued. I think you got it exactly right, Director Scobie. That was the concern I had. I just don't like the life and death aspect. I think it's more about of how it is valued.
If I can interject, we have a member of the public with a hand raised.
Excellent.
Make sure that we acknowledge that. So Alyssa, if you could unmute Barbara.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I've been a participant for 16 years in these meetings, a retired public employee. And I've never looked at the district as not being viable. I think that the problem we have is getting public participation. And I have said this for years. How do we get people to be involved, to really know what the district's about? It couldn't be easier but to zoom in on these meetings now. But I'm usually the lone wolf. We did have a group of people. You could call us kind of rabble rousers, but one by one, people have dropped off. They've lost interest. I have not. I will continue to participate to be an informed citizen. I think that this district has come a long ways in the 16 years I've been coming to meetings, and the knowledge I had of the district prior to that by being a public employee here in El Dorado County. So I think the viable kind of stymies me because I don't look as the district not being a viable district. As far as the public perception, and I've spoken to Eric about this in the past, and also Jill and other past board members, how do you get the public even involved to know what the district is about? So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Barbara. Appreciate
You're
that.
Well, it was it's a good discussion starter, no doubt. And I think maybe that wasn't the best word to describe what the intent, the sentiment of the employees was, but valuable, competent, viable, let's just keep those all in the same context and understand what it is they're trying to say here is that we're kind of on a good path for making up for the past. And there's going to be a number of the things that you put in your strategic plans. A few of the things that you put in your strategic plans that are going to be critical to that. Some that are going to be very important to that as well. But the next one's succession planning for leadership positions. Leadership positions are the ones that oftentimes are, everyone in your district with your particular mission it seems like almost everybody ends up interacting with the public. But leadership positions are just that. They lead and they set the tone and the example. And so succession planning for leadership positions, we know of one in particular that's going to be critical. And so that's going to be a big one relative to these other things. Over the years, when public servants retire or move, so much can change. You have your own experience in that, is that when one person changes out, the whole is a sea change in how the district operates and then eventually how it's viewed. So that's an important one too, succession planning for leadership positions. And then strengthening partnerships with local agencies and community groups. Felissa, you brought this one up and accentuated it earlier in our list to improve the district's standing in the county and ability. And it kind of goes along with those other three. We're just the ones we're just talking about. It takes the kind of leader to be able to do that, to want to do that, to be good at doing that. It kind of continues with that viable agency, if that's the word, with others around you, and then working with the public. A lot of this layers upon itself, saying similar messages. So that was your employees or your leader. Oh, there it again. Hang on.
Very cool. I enjoyed reading that. So
Yeah, that was a good input set.
It was very good.
And we all talked about how, you know, we all believe in partnerships and stuff like that. So while there's only a one there, you know, I think that we all collectively agree that that's an important strategic issue.
I want to point out the fact how they, in not knowing what you individually would say, board members, are picking up on the same vibe in a number of places. And so it's obvious to you and them, which is really a good sign that you're not way off in the in different directions. It's also good that your employees didn't list anything here that's selfish. What they did is list things that were really for the good of the district. It's not always that way. And so that's a good sign. Everybody's ready to move this on and move it forward as best we can.
Brent, I just have one other comment I'd like to make.
Yes.
On that slide. The second bullet, maintain culture that values professionalism, mutual respect, and collaboration. I think that's very important. I feel bad I didn't bring that forward. So I just want to acknowledge to the staff that I take that for granted and that you're doing a very good job of doing that. And having it called out, I think, is very important. And I'm glad to see that, because I just assume that's always going to be there, but it does need to be listed.
Yeah, you're right. It does. It needs to be accentuated, because that's not by accident. When employees will use the maintain word rather than the attain word, that's a world of difference than probably just a few years ago. And so staying on this good path is a kind of a central theme of this. And that's very, very important to point out. Thank you. Okay, Jill, this one's yours. Because we're going to talk about a 5-year budget projection. I'm going to show you this, the next thing, and I hope you can see it pretty well, but that's going to come up next. But first, any kind of projection has assumptions. And one of the most important things a board can do in looking at a spreadsheet or looking at anything that projects out into the future is ask, what were the assumptions that went into this? Because everything that looks out into the future, unless there's very solid evidence, is based on assumption. And so Jill and her staff no doubt put this together. So Jill, I'm going to turn this one over to you.
I'll do this really briefly. This the spreadsheet
Jill,
you're going to see.
one thing, Jill, I think, quite frankly, it's already 7:40.
Mhm.
I think we're gonna get through this and maybe a couple more before we end tonight.
Okay.
But we'll be right back at this. We're not talking months here till we're gonna have another meeting. We're talking about weeks, maybe even days, maybe even next week, that we get back on the same train and just go to the next stages. Is that all right? I just want everybody to understand. But we're not done yet. So go ahead, Jill.
Okay. So about a few years ago, the district hired a consultant, Regional Governance Services, to do a 5-year projection. And so instead of re-engaging a consultant, Vicki and I just simply updated their projections, and it was timely to update their projections. So this methodology was put forth just to kind of give you some framework. the starting point is fiscal year 1920. And I need you to know that that's the first full year that the district current leadership put together a budget and concluded a budget. So we were still making improvements in processes. So I think that even though it's 1920 and it's a new budget, there are still some efficiencies. We had a conservative projection on property taxes. We based CAL FIRE costs on current actuals. Retiree healthcare is at its highest cost now. We think that that will be going down. So those are the kind of the assumptions that were carried forward. And this document was provided to the Budget and Admin Committee a year ago. So it's also pre-COVID. So just know that. But if you go to the next slide, what I like to do is, you can see our beginning fund balance, which is across the top line. Operating revenues, property taxes, and then all other revenues, which includes the ambulance JPA, community center revenues, recreation revenues, franchise fees, wages and benefits, services and supplies, total expenditures. I think the line that I really like to look at is that second from the bottom, it's called percent deficit. And you can see that in fiscal year 1920, there was a 3% deficit. In year 2021, it was to be a 1% deficit. Of course, that's pre-COVID. Next year, 2%. So it's a very small, with a $6 million budget, it's a very small percentage that we are off. And so I think it's really important for you to realize I think just we're not going to fall off the face of the cliff anytime soon, but it is a situation that we need to address, and it is urgent that we address it. And what we need to do is to take that 1%, 2% deficit and turn that into a 1%, 2%, 3% positive gain at the end of the budget. And that's the shift, but it is absolutely doable. Since this has come out, we've come forward with some reserves, with some additional money, which helps to alleviate this. So I guess my message here is, yeah, we have a problem, and yes, it needs to be addressed, but it's absolutely addressable. We can do this. So
It is addressable,
mm-hmm.
and it shows.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, other thoughts? Do you need a little time to absorb it, or is this what you already know?
This is Felicity. Thank you for putting this out here. And is this Jill, is this where you're talking about how the current retiree health benefits are at their most expensive and they're starting to go down, and that's the part of the reason for the deficit,
right?
Kind of holding steady, if you will?
Right. The retiree health cost will go down because our retirees are aging. And so they're getting into Medicare, Medi-Cal age. So we're really not adding to too many more retirees at this point. And I think the district is working to make some adjustments in, retiree healthcare, which we're trying to work out. So I think that is a cost that's going down. I think the cost to deliver services is going down, just in that we've got a lot of better systems here to deliver more efficient services. So I think that will be going down as well.
And I had a question. This is Monique. Did I see on that previous assumption sheet that there was 2% being shuffled off to the reserves?
Allocation to capital assets from property taxes is 2%.
So this includes a 2% allocation to the reserves.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. So which we need to do.
Right.
If we didn't do that, then that number on the other page would be closer to 0.
Yeah.
Okay. Just want everybody to know that.
Good news. Okay.
And this projected budget doesn't take into account the potential of our solar project as well,
Correct.
which,
Oh, that's right.
and
dude.
conservative figures, if I'm remembering right, neighborhood of 60 to 80,000 a year.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
putting
So-
that into the equation changes it significantly too.
Yeah.
Great.
So Director Scobie, as you point out, that firm financial, 5 years from now, that financial footing, this has a lot of bearing on that. I mean, you can quantify what that really means in terms of goals relative to some of these roads, some of these definitions, if you'd like, as we get there, if we want to, if indeed that is one of the strategic focus areas is finances, which it usually is. We can come back to this and look, or we can actually quantify some of that. The 2% automatic into reserves and respecting that each year is pretty significant. Not every I don't know of, at least within my sphere, and I've worked with 400 or 500 agencies. Rarely, oftentimes that's the first thing to go when there's real problems. If you've done things to be able to mitigate that, the need for that to go, sometimes it's easier said than done. As you said, Jill, it's maybe operating efficiencies that have helped you get there. That's really significant, Board.
Brent, this is Felicity. I apologize, but there was like a sound glitch and I really wanted to hear what you just said. So it was something about, you've seen in a lot of other districts, something was the first to go.
Yeah.
What was that?
Let me get to it.
The reserve
This, no. Where is it?
that's it.
It's a
That is it. Allocation to asset reserves.
Got it. Thank you so much. Yeah.
That, as an automatic thing, I mean, board members that want to do something special, let's say you want to acquire a new park, or you want to start or build a new community center. This is oftentimes the first place they'll go is to the reserves and say, look, let's just hold off on the reserves a few years and we can begin, so it's a discipline. It really is. And so that's to be admired. And then at the same time, having a staff and a general manager that are willing to look for those operational efficiencies and find those, because really, in all reality, that's what we want. We as managers of the public funds would like to be able to assure those things, that we've got a good solid budget with good solid reserves that are very going to be useful to us when the need calls. And we constantly are going through our operating modalities to be able to trim them and make sure they're most efficient. Very good. That's just very nice. Now, so a community survey, and I'm going to let Whitney's going to go through these next slides, and there are charts and graphs, so it's really exciting. But at the end of that, I'm going to outline for you what we're going to do at our next meeting. Okay. So it was released on December 7th. It remains open. I don't know how many we're getting. Whitney will be able to tell you that. And here are the following slides. Go for it, Whitney.
Okay. So we've done the survey through SurveyMonkey, and I just tried to clean it up a bit. So the far left, it shows you what the question was, and then basically it was just worded as, what makes the Cameron Park a special place to live, and click off.
Could I interrupt for a moment, please?
Sure.
I can't read this. Is there a way that you could perhaps go through the first half as zoomed in and then take the second half and then we'll see it all again together? Or is there another way to view this? Maybe it's me and I just need to zoom in my computer?
You know, there is another way to view it. I'm not gonna, let me try this. Hang on. Uh-oh.
Whitney could also just call out the ones that are the highest
It should
ranking
come
ones.
back. It didn't come back, did it? Sorry. Now I don't know where you guys are. Okay. So I've got that back and I should be able to do this view. Why should I not? Maybe because
Like,
I'm
go to the
sharing
Zoom
screen.
function at the top.
It's very small. And
Yeah,
that's
I'm so sorry. Let's see if I can make it bigger. I'm going to get rid of this.
Can you go to the Zoom function at the top of your taskbar there and make
I
that
sure,
go
yeah, I can do that.
75 to 200%?
Yeah. I can only go as big as the slide, right?
That's better,
That'll work.
much better.
How about that? Uh-oh, that wasn't probably what I intended to do. So bear with me. Oh my. Oh,
Just hit undo.
yeah, I'm looking for that.
Edit,
That
undo.
yellow.
There's a yellow arrow that,
Your undo button is the little yellow arrow.
yeah, halfway through the top part. There you go. There.
Yeah,
Okay, bear with me. I'm just going to get rid of this. Then I'm going to put this back up there. Better?
Okay. And I'll
Okay.
confirm too. So basically people were given a whole bunch of all these 12 criteria. They were supposed to click the ones that they say, yes, these are things that we have currently that make Cameron Park a special place to live. So 58.5% of respondents, which we had 100 at the time of me pulling this information, it was 133 people had taken the survey. And as of today, we're at like 154. So there's about 20 more people that have taken it. And at our next meeting, I'll be pulling those in and making this more up to date with the new people. But for at that time, 58.5 said that yes, we are close to local recreation opportunities. 61.2 said yes, we're close to regional recreation opportunities. 56 said yes, we have good schools. 56 said yes, we have great neighborhoods. 30, yes, we have affordable home. 30% said yes, we have affordable homes. 50% said we have well-kept neighborhoods and community parks. 43% says we have a strong sense of community. 34% said we have stable property values. 46% say we have yes, we have a close proximity to fire stations. 27% said yes, we have community amenities for seniors. 34.6% said yes, we have community amenities for youth and families. And then 49% said adequate waste collection and recycling services. And then 17% said other, and they listed out what those are. And we have, I don't know, are we giving out a supplemental?
The supplement is the last, is in the slide deck. It's, I just put it at the end.
Okay.
But it's a long list of comments that aren't as statistically prevalent as these. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. Okay. And then, so the next question that we asked.
Next slide, Whitney.
Yes, please.
Okay, bear with me. Getting rid of that. Get rid of that.
When we're basically asking for the opposite. So the same exact criteria, and we're saying, which of these are we not quite there yet on? What would you say no, if you're answering this, are you saying no to, we would need it to say that Cameron Park was a special place to live. So 7.5% said that no, we're not close to local recreation opportunities. No, we're 3.3% said no, we're not close to regional. 9% said no, we don't have good schools. So these are all pretty low numbers, which is good. We want to see low numbers on this one. And then 14% said we don't have great neighborhoods. 20% said we don't have affordable homes. 36% said we don't have well-kept neighborhoods and community parks. 27% said we don't have a strong sense of community. 15% said we don't have stable property values. 6% said we don't have close proximity to fire stations. 18% said we don't have, community amenities for seniors. 30% said we don't have community amenities for families and youth. And then 9% said we don't have adequate waste collection services. And then a whole bunch of people said other. So again, you guys we, for the board members and for the public, we did compile all of the things that people weighed in with. So we can give that to you guys. And then the very last question that we asked our residents was, we had a text box and they could weigh in themselves on what they think is the most important issue or challenge facing us as a district over the next 5 years. And because it was a text box where people could just type, some people typed a list, some people typed paragraphs. there was a whole bunch of text that was accounted for here. So what I did was just basically compartmentalize and chunk them up into different, like these specific categories. So you can see on this pie chart, there was a big chunk, the 13% is miscellaneous and kind of general. 18.8, so almost 20% of people were saying that they think the parks in Cameron Park Lake are going to be the biggest issue and challenge facing us. Transportation was 7%. Growth and development was another really big one. A lot of people had a lot to say about growth. And public health and safety, 6%. Fire insurance, 7%. CCNR, 7%. Finances, 11%. And recreation, 10%. So that's what they're thinking are going to be our biggest issues coming up. And then again, there's, gosh, I don't remember what it was, Brent, like 7 pages of people's actual responses for you guys to read and just kind of understand a little bit more the way that the community weighed in on these things. And this is a pretty crude pie chart in terms of just like having to have something that fit into a slide. So there was like that miscellaneous category is because there was all over the place. Some people were like, the library should be open on Saturdays and there's too many potholes on my street. So there was, obviously that doesn't fall into a nice perfect little category. So you guys can see all of the fun and random stuff.
Now I'm going to show you, and you'll have some time for question here. We can come back to this. It's 19, but the last slide, this is what I got from you, Whitney, this is, maybe there's more that I didn't get right or didn't pick up on. These were the comments that I had other than that. So if there's more, let's add it to what I'm going to do, board, is because this is going to come to a conclusion tonight. I'm going to send you this. And Whitney, we're going to make sure tomorrow that we have everything. If this is everything, then we'll send this and all the slides we've done so far with your inputs and so forth. And I'll send that to Jill. She can distribute it to all of you, and anyone from the public that wants to ask for it can get it from Jill. And then you'll have that in preparation for our next meeting. Is that, will that help you? That way you'll have what we've done so far. And then we'll pick up from there. Including this and all those charts and graphs and the spreadsheet.
May I ask, would it help if when we got this, I could give them maybe to the Elks or to the Chamber of Commerce and grope their interest in these things?
Ellie, we've met with the Chamber of Commerce and yes, Elks and all of that. So what we're going to do, Whitney and I talked about it later on today.
Oh, the newcomers.
In the newcomers, absolutely. So what Whitney is going to do is she's going to develop a report that contains all of the responses that we've gotten from the survey and all of this data and all of the comments. And we're going to post it on the website so that even the people who responded to the survey will understand how their neighbors and their friends, what they said about the district. So, and we'll update that every few weeks as we have more respondents. So that will be available here pretty soon.
So I will send what I've got. Oh, I'm sorry.
A couple of them to a meeting of these other ones, but that's all right.
Yeah. And Ellie, I'll reach out to you and we can absolutely, reach out to Elks and newcomers. I would be happy to do that with you.
Okay, so that concludes tonight's portion. And again, all the slides we've gone through tonight and this one I'm going to send to Jill tomorrow, and she'll distribute it to you all so that you have it to be able to look at what we've done so far and that list that we generated early. And then we'll pick up on it as soon as we can. We're even talking about next week's meeting. I've got to look at Jill proposed that to me this morning. This evening. And I'm looking at my calendar to see if I can free that time up, and we'll put some time in on this as well then perhaps. But I didn't leave time for questions for Whitney. Did you all want to, Mr. Chair, did you want to start that, or are there any questions on these graphs?
I think we would do good as a group to get that information and be able to digest it to then ask some questions next time.
Yeah. Okay.
The only thing I would ask, if we could go back to that third slide.
The pie chart?
The pie chart, correct. Yep. Just recognizing that there are two pieces here that rise to the top. It would be nice to have a little bit of summary work on that for our next meeting, particularly talking about what's understood to be growth and development, what are people seeing as the issues for parks in Cameron Park Lake. So if we have that a little more summarized, I think that'll advance our conversation, just particularly because those are significantly higher than the others.
Would you want it to be summarized, or do you want to see like what every single person said? I'm happy either way, but right now what we currently have is just broken up into these different categories. So let's say of that Parks and Cameron Park Lake, 40 people had things to say about those things, then like it would be broken up that way. Like you can read these 40 people's comments, and then 20 people said something about finances. You can read those 20 comments about finances. Is that what you're talking about? Is that what you mean?
Yes, and that's knowing the scope of that is helpful. If it's 50 pages of growth and development, 50 pages of parks in Park Lake, I'll take a summary.
No, it's like 8 pages total.
Okay, then I think at least for the board, we want to understand all of that, but I'm particularly interested in the two that rose to the top: growth and development, parks and lake.
I did have the same question. I'm like, well, what growth and development, what? And I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping in, but I recognize they're all different. Whitney, it sounds like it's like a whole slew of comments that maybe are difficult to summarize, but I would like some insight into that, even if it means you're just sending me all the comments, sending us all those comments. But
it's very readable. I read through it, didn't take very long, but it's very readable. Okay. And I appreciated reading it because while it's grouped together, some were on the positive side, some were on the negative side. So you kind of have to go through and read the comments.
And that's what I was hoping to hear, is I appreciate us getting to get the individual perspectives. The high flying level is important, but some of that specific input is really good too.
I think it is. I think it's once you see, it's actually kind of funny. Like you're going down the list of like the growth and development stuff, and it'll be like, don't cave, and like no retail. And then literally the next comment will be like, more retail. Like it's very interesting that we really do have two very distinct camps in Cameron Park that I think I was aware of prior to this, but this
brought it into sharp
relief. Made it very, very evident that there are really two different groups of people that kind of want the growth and want the development, and people that are like, keep us rural, keep us small. It's really interesting. I think you guys will like reading what we got back. I think it's all really good feedback and really good to just kind of know, like getting a beat on the pulse of the community.
And this is one of the rare opportunities we get that kind of breadth.
Right.
So I'm grateful for that. Thank you so much for all your work with this, Whitney. I know
it's been really fun.
A lot to sort through. But,
I have a question.
Like you're having fun at times. So, yeah, with that, it'd be nice to get that information.
Quick question regarding that.
Yes.
Would we be getting the newest updated results? Would you recategorize those and we get the most recent results, or are you going to give us what you have here in the pie chart?
Either way. I can get you the additional responses that have come in since I pulled it on the 7th for sure.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, we recognize your time, Whitney. trying to get that compiled and done and ready for our meeting, especially if we have to have that for next week. So trust your judgment on what can be done and what we can get. But yeah,
Sure.
any more updating we can, it would be great with the time you have.
Yeah, you bet.
We're going to attempt to meet next Wednesday.
There is some discussion about adding that as an agenda piece for our already scheduled board meeting.
Right.
So you,
Yeah, it's that was kind of new to us, only as an opportunity. And so Jill didn't think I'd be able to make it, and I may not, but I'm going to try, which will put the pressure on, unfortunately, Whitney to try to get you some stuff.
Do we have the time to add that to the agenda and
Yeah,
comply with the Brown Act and whatnot?
Yeah, the agenda is being posted tomorrow. Felicity.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Actually, only one business item. Who'd think? But after all of the busy meetings, we only have one business item next week. So
Right. Oh, okay.
all right, then with that, Mr. Chair, I'll hand it back to you. And you all know that you'll be getting materials over the week, starting hopefully tomorrow.
Okay.
thank you, Brent. And before we close that off, I just want to open up once more for public comment. Barbara and Jana, if there's anything there, you want to raise your hand to ask comment on before we close that off. Okay, seeing none. All right, General Manager, is there anything else within this item for our general business that we want to cover or discuss tonight?
there is not. And if you guys have some matters to and from to share, we may want to say goodnight to Brent.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
Brent.
As we close this out, thank you, Brent. We're looking forward to further conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I guess I need to hand back the,
There you go.
oh, somebody took it. Okay, good. That's fine. Bye.
Oh, look at
Bye, everyone.
It's great.
Thank you, Brent.
Yep, thank you.
Bye now.
Be safe.
Bye.
Good night. Thanks,
Good
Brent.
night.
Good night, Brent.
Okay, so that concludes item number 4 on our agenda for general business workshop, 5-year strategic plan. We will come back to that potentially, hopefully next week. If not, then obviously we will schedule another time. General Manager.
And the staff and I are planning to conclude our stakeholder meetings by the end of the month. And so if we meet next week, it's great because we're keeping the process moving along, but the staff and I are still meeting with stakeholders. And so might be a benefit to postpone it to February, even if we need to do a special meeting, because you'll have the
State coolers? What did you say?
Excuse me, Ellie?
What did you say? I missed the state coolers.
So Whitney and Jim and Mike and I are meeting with different groups like the Chamber of Commerce and in fact, Alyssa, I think in the sheriff file, I have a list of all the groups that we're meeting with. So there's about 25 groups. We're setting up meetings. I've already met with CAL FIRE. Whitney's already met with the library. So there's lots of groups that we're meeting with, and we will conclude these stakeholder meetings to get their ideas by the end of the month.
Got it.
So there might be value, and that's what Brent and I were talking about. There might be value to wait and have another workshop in February because we'll have concluded those meetings.
Then we're just gonna have our regular Wednesday, third Wednesday Board of Directors meetings, or
Yeah.
no?
So yeah, so next week we have a Board of Directors meeting scheduled, regular meeting. There's only one business item on it. And so we might add, some time to spend for the board on the strategic plan. I think if we do add something to the agenda, it would probably be concerning our vision and values, not necessarily those strategic objectives, but the vision and the values. And so, that's what we're talking about and seeing if Brent is available and to see if we can do that.
Mhm.
Any questions about that, folks?
I'm in favor. So
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah, I'm interested in trying to take every opportunity to move this forward. And if there's time on the agenda, a visions value discussion, mission statement discussion, I think would be valuable.
Okay, great. And that's good feedback for me to have. Also, tomorrow I will send you out this list. And if there are additional groups that you would like for staff or staff and you to meet with, we can certainly set up some Zoom meetings and we can, reach out to some additional people.
Wonderful. Okay, any other comments, input from board before we move on, board or staff? Okay, then we finish up general business item number 4, our workshop discussion. Now we move into board information items. And we have opportunities on this in our general board meetings, but this is also an opportunity with additional staff here tonight. So let me hand that to staff first. If there's any items from our members of our staff to bring to us tonight that you want to report in on?
I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I do have something new. Sherry, Mike Grassley, and the rest of the lifeguards, Whitney and I are working. There are some vaccinations that the fire department have received and are not using. And so they're actually starting to vaccinate some of the district employees as soon as Saturday. We're starting with our parks employees. So that's really great news. The district has registered for vaccinations, but Sherry was able to have, they're going to go to waste if somebody doesn't use them. So all the parks employees have jumped in.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Good job.
Yeah, well, thanks to our fire partners and for you all for jumping on that and making that happen. Good job.
Lifeguards will be next.
Okay. Rather than do a roll call, I'll just open up if there's any staff that has something to report in. Would love to hear from you. I'm seeing a couple of heads nod or shake. Okay. Then let me bring it back to board members. Anything, Director Scobie?
Yeah, I went online to the county website and they allow you to register should there be any vaccines available. And you have to be there within 30 to 60 minutes in Placerville or South Lake Tahoe. So I signed myself and my husband up for that, and we'll see.
Yeah.
And the other item is I attended the EDSWAC meeting, the El Dorado Solid Waste Advisory Committee on Monday, and reading some of the supporting materials. So hopefully I'll be up to speed and be able to share some of my lessons learned with you.
That's spectacular. Never thought I'd say that about waste disposal. Thank you. Thank you, Director Scobie. That's great. Appreciate your involvement there. Director Carlson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm repeating the message we are all hearing, but please continue to be vigilant against hanging out with your friends and loved ones right now. As you all know, I've been contact tracing COVID, people exposed to COVID. Then I moved to case investigating people with COVID. Then it turned into talking to their whole family because the whole family had COVID. And then it turned into calling people who are in the hospital with COVID. And then Friday, they asked me to start calling families to let them know their family member died from COVID. So we are so far, I know it's been going up where we live, but I'm just repeating, let's not take it for granted that it's not more widespread where we live. And people I talk to, the people who have COVID, I talk to on the phone these days, they're just really, they don't necessarily know how they got it, but it's so widespread. It's just everywhere. And we just can't take for granted if we don't have it. And the way it's spreading is within households. So I just encourage you to do your best to not hang out outside your household and therefore don't bring it back into your household. So that's my message. Hopefully it's just a few more months of this. Thank you.
Carlson. Okay, Director Bazette.
Yes, last Thursday, I met with Jill and was kind of working with her about one of my committee assignments and asking her advice. but it also happened to be the date of the food bank coming to Cameron Park. And they come once a month, and they're in that back lane on the other side of the pool. And it was a very impressive event. I met the director of the food person and all that, and they had huge trucks, and El Dorado County Office of Ed was, I think, supplying diapers, and the food bank had things, and it was produce and packaged. Deputy sheriffs were there. It was a very impressive event. In talking to the food bank director, she said they're meeting about 300 families a month who are coming in. So that's one of the sides of our economy at the moment. She also said they've shut down the food bank in El Dorado Hills. So Cameron Park is really supplying a need for quite a large area. So I was very impressed. It's one of those secrets that I wish it was better. The information was put out there more for more and more people to find out. I asked how they do get that information out, and what they said is they go to apartment buildings and things like that, and word of mouth is how it's been done. But certainly it could maybe be more efficient if we were able to spread that good news, but they do come once a month.
It's the first Thursday of each month.
Yeah.
And I think we've been putting that in our e-newsletter.
Have we? Okay, good.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Sid, that's the flyer that came in my mail.
Oh, great.
Got
Okay.
it sitting right here next to me is something I was paying some attention to. Yeah.
Well, we know people, and there's people who have never had this issue before, but suddenly food is, scarcity is a problem. So it's nice to know we have a resource out there.
That's good. Thank you. All right, Director Wooten, anything to bring to
And if
us?
you have any new little grandkids, they even have diapers. They do.
But
And
Director
people
Wooten,
stayed, people stayed in their cars, by the way. It was very safely done. Yeah.
And then they have food at the CSD. I think it's $3 for lunch from Monday through Friday, but you have to call the day before. So there's food all over. But no, I don't have anything else to report, if you will.
okay. Okay, so back to me. One item I wanted to report, and I'll probably bring up again next meeting just because it's a more general meeting, but I wanted to report to you and in the public meeting. At our December meeting, when I was tasked as president, one of the things now is the appointment of members to committees, both board and volunteer. So wanted to update you all that the last couple weeks we had about 9 people showing interest in the CCR committee and ARC. And so Jim was wonderful to work with, getting information from him and bouncing things around. So I got to talk with almost all of the members or all the applicants who made themselves available. And so talking through that with Jim, we've made appointments to the CCNR committee. And so our CCNR community volunteers this next year will be Bob Duda, Patricia Rivera, and Kelly Cantola. And our ARC committee volunteers will be Brendan Overstreet, Kathy Markin, and Catherine Gilfillan. Robert Reed will serve as an alternate. And so lots of good faces, new people, returning people. I'm encouraged by the quality of the people that came to us and the level of involvement they want to be in on this. So I just want to tell you, this is a good group of folks, and I'm really looking forward to the work they're going to do this next year, particularly just getting to engage some new people. So I'm excited about that, to report that to you all. So I'm hoping, General Manager.
Still on the CCNRs or no?
Ellie, these are the community volunteers that are.
Oh, the community. Go ahead.
Yes, I've already made the appointments for you all. Your name's right there. You're good. So just wanted to celebrate that and some new folks in the community getting involved, which is always worth celebrating.
Yes.
When you have more applicants than chairs, that's great.
Oh,
So,
that's nice.
yes, so celebrating that with you. And that's all I have tonight. We've covered a lot of business here. I'll open it up one last time. Any other matters that might have risen to mind before we move to adjourn? Okay, so I'll just remind everyone, we have our regular board meeting next week on Wednesday. And I look forward to seeing you there with a short agenda and maybe some extra time to talk about our vision, mission, and values. It's going to be good stuff. So we will adjourn this meeting. It is 8:21. So Alyssa, thank you for your help in recording that. We'll go ahead and shut
You're
that down.
very welcome.
I'm going to call for a motion